All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy, and this is Beard of Kanto. And to talk about shipping a little bit. Um, so, TCG Player, it will tell you when you ship something that is over $20, it'll tell you that it recommends you ship it with tracking, like in a bubble mailer and stuff like that. Um, I believe, let's see, I think there's even TCG Player has some shipping guidelines here, which is definitely helpful. I definitely recommend you take a look at these. Um, but here's what I've so here it is what I was talking about. Any order over $20 of value should include tracking, delivery confirmation for your own protection. Now, um, these these are essentially recommendations. They don't require this. I think the only thing that's required, let's see, if it's over 50, they do require tracking. And if it's over 250, they require tracking with a signature. So those are the only like um, mandatory things that they require. But so what I found is if it's under 50 bucks, I use a plain white envelope and a stamp. And I know you might say, well, isn't that risky? If I'm shipping out, say, a $40 card and it gets lost in the mail and I don't have tracking on that, basically I lose 40 bucks because the what's going to happen is the buyer's going to say I didn't receive it. TCG player is going to say, hey, there's no tracking on this, and they're going to refund the buyer. You lose your card, and there's not much you can do. And I get that there's a risk involved there, but um, what I've learned in almost 500 sales now is that it's very rare for people not to get their letter or get the envelope. And if I spent, $4.99 or whatever it is, I think it's between. I can usually send something out with tracking between like $4 and $5. If I do that on everything that's over $20, I mean, I'm losing 25%. If it's a $20 card and I send it out with tracking, I'm losing almost 25% or at least 20% right off the bat, and that's not even including the TCG player fees. So for me, I found that it's consistent enough and the risk is low enough that it's worth sending anything under $50 in an envelope with a stamp, and that's worked for me. I think maybe only once have I had someone say, "Hey, I didn't receive my card." It was like, and it ended up being like it was like a $17 card or something like that, and I did end up losing that. But losing the $17 there is much better in my opinion than probably the, I don't know, maybe $250 that I've saved um, on shipping by not sending out sending it out with tracking. So that's just my opinion. That's kind of what I found. Do with that what you'd like, but that's my recommendation. Uh, Next, I have found when you are shipping in an envelope that I can fit about 16 cards in a single envelope. If it has 16 cards and I use two stamps, or you can use like an extra ounce stamp. But if it's more than 16 cards, I have found that I will get the envelope sent back to me because it's like too thick and it doesn't go through their machine. And I know there's ways to do like non-machinable and you can write that on there. But I I found that the USPS pretty much they put it through the machine no matter what. And if it's too thick, they just send it back. They don't really care. So if it's over 16 cards, I will actually split it into two envelopes. That's what I found to be easiest. So I will literally have, let's say it's 20 cards, then I'll have 10 cards uh, in each envelope, and I'll just print out the order uh, twice and send the person two different envelopes. Because for me, that's cheaper than sending it with tracking, which is like $4 or $5, right? Um, yeah. So the other recommendation that kind of goes along with that, and this is why I've preferred even more so to send it out into envelopes, is how I buy stamps. So I can't remember what stamps are right now. They're like 68 cents, maybe 70 cents, something like that. But I buy my stamps off of eBay. And if you buy off eBay, you can get some really good deals on older stamps, right? Like here's one 2023, and you get 100 stamps for $16. This actually seems cheaper than what I'm used to seeing. But think about that. That means you're paying 16 cents per per stamp instead of 68 cents or whatever. Usually I don't get it that cheap. Usually I get it. I saw another one down here. Here's like $25 and you get 100 stamps from 2023. Um, but you can see that you can get cheaper rates if you buy like 100 stamps at a time and you buy them on eBay. My guess is people bought stamps for a business or some other purpose, and they ended up not using them, and they got a bunch of them, so they're just trying to like offload them on eBay, and so you can get a better rate. So I would highly recommend exploring that a little bit and saving money on stamps, because then you can be a little bit, your margins are a little bit better. If you need to send out put two stamps on an envelope, it's not as big of a deal. Um, yeah, so that's definitely my recommendation. Um, the other thing in terms of shipping is how I ship with tracking, right? So let's say you are shipping a higher value card, something over $50, or maybe you get an order that has like 50 cards in there, and it's rare, but there's just no way to break it up into envelopes, and it ends up being better to just ship it with tracking. Um, so I use Pirate Ship. There's a lot of other alternatives that are similar to it, like Shippo, and I can't remember what the other one is, like shipping.com or something like that. But Pirate Ship has worked really well for me. It's really easy to use. You just, once you have an account, you can kind of set up your ship from address. And then usually how I do it is I'll go to ship here and then do single, and then I can put their name and address info. I can select if I'm shipping a box or an envelope. Usually I'm doing an envelope, and it's usually cheaper to do an envelope. Um, and you just put your dimensions. If it's an envelope, usually I have like a 6x9. Let's put that in. And then, I don't know, let's say I'm shipping 50 cards. So I don't know, maybe it's like 6 ounces or something like that. And then down here, you have options for like signature confirmation. That's if it's over a $250 order. You can add insurance, extra insurance, because I think it's $100 by default is added. But yeah, so definitely recommend using Pirate Ship or Shippo or some other service like that instead of trying to send it through like go to your local post office and pay those rates. I think it's something like 20 to 30% cheaper if you use one of these services. So definitely recommend that to save on money as well. Um, the last thing I'd say is um, you want to, or when it comes to shipping like sealed product, I tend to stray away from that as well, just because it gets so expensive to ship. If they're smaller items like single booster packs, that's okay, right? Especially if they're vintage packs and they're worth quite a bit more, then I think that is worth it because you pay what, $4.99 to ship it through Pirate Ship. Um, and you know, if you're making 200 bucks on a vintage pack, then it's worth it. But if you're selling an ETB worth 40 bucks, and you end up spending $10 on shipping it, and then after fees, it really adds up, and it kind of eats at your earnings. So I prefer to just sell locally there. Um, so oh, and one other thing I would mention is kind of how I do my letters is or the envelopes is if it's three or less cards, I put it in a top loader. Um, if it's four or more cards, I'll kind of stack them together and put them. I'll double sleeve it, so I'll put a sleeve um, uh, kind of like upwards, and then I'll put one downwards, and then put a little tape on it, just to kind of keep it secure in the sleeves when it's in the envelope, and that's worked pretty well for me. But the what I'll do is a max of 8 cards in the stack, which, as I mentioned earlier, can be up to 16 in a single envelope. Anything more than that, I split envelopes or just ship it with tracking.
So true. My colors are full of you. You teach me and I'll teach you.